The old star maps showed the Orion Galactic Coalition as a place of power and stability. For over 1,000 years, countless alien species had lived together in peace, their united fleets protecting the known universe from anything that dared to threaten them. The Coalition was proud. The Coalition was strong. Or at least, that was what everyone believed until the day everything changed. The Consortium came from the darkness between stars. No one knew where they came from, or how they had grown so powerful. They were not like the other invaders that the Coalition had faced before. The Consortium was different. They were biomechanical beings, creatures that were part living and part machine, connected together by a single hive mind. Their ships were organic and strange, moving through space in ways that seemed to break the laws of physics. When they attacked, nothing could stop them. The first worlds to fall were on the outer edges of Coalition space. Entire civilizations that had existed for millions of years were destroyed in days. The Coalition sent their fleets to fight back, but the battles were short and terrible. The ancient weapons that had always protected the galaxy did not work against the Consortium. Their ships fell from the sky like dead birds. The people who lived on those worlds watched in horror as their protectors were defeated. Captain Aria Voss sat in the command center of the human warship called the Prometheus and watched the reports come in. She was a tall woman, with dark eyes, and a strong face that showed the weight of what she was seeing. The Prometheus was humanity's greatest achievement. It was the first warship that the human race had ever built without help from other species. For years, the other aliens had laughed at humanity for trying to build their own weapons. They said humans were too young, too weak, too emotional to create something so powerful. But Aria and her crew had proven them wrong. The Prometheus was stationed at the edge of Coalition space, in a quiet sector where nothing important happened, that was about to change. A distress signal came through the communications system. It was the strongest signal Aria had ever heard. She put it on speaker so everyone in the command center could listen. The voice that came through was the leader of the Coalition's military forces. His name was Commander Shrell, and he was from a species that had been fighting wars for 10,000 years. His voice was not steady. There was fear in it, real fear. All Coalition fleets, this is Sector 7 Command. We are under heavy attack from the Consortium. Our shields are failing. Our weapons are not working. We have lost 70% of our forces in the last 12 hours. We are requesting emergency support from all available ships. The Consortium is moving toward the central worlds. If we cannot stop them here, the entire Coalition will fall. The command center of the Prometheus became very quiet. Everyone was looking at Captain Voss, waiting to see what she would do. She stood up from her chair and walked to the window. Through the glass, she could see space stretching out before her, empty and vast and dark. One of her officers, a young man named David Chen, spoke up. Captain, the distance to Sector 7 is 3 weeks of travel. By the time we get there, the battle will be over. All the reports say the Coalition is losing badly. Our orders are to stay at this station. We should not risk the Prometheus on a mission that cannot be won. Aria did not turn around when she answered. David, do you know why I asked for this posting? No, Captain, he said. Because I wanted to prove that humanity was more than just a curiosity to the Coalition. I wanted to show them that we belonged here, that we could be trusted to do the right thing, not just the safe thing. If we stay here while the Coalition dies, then we have learned nothing. We will be proof that the other species were right about us. We will be the young race that looked away when it mattered most. She turned to face her crew. They were a mix of human and alien beings. Some of them had families on the Coalition worlds that were being attacked. Some of them were afraid. All of them were looking at her. Set a course for Sector 7, Aria said quietly. Maximum speed. All hands to battle stations. Captain, David said again. The higher command will either understand that we did the right thing, or they will understand it later. But either way, we go. This is what the Prometheus was built for. This is what we are for. The Prometheus began to move. Its massive engines ignited with a blue-white fire that was visible across the sector. The ship was not the largest warship in the Coalition. It was not the oldest or the most advanced. But it was human, and it was heading toward the fight. As the Prometheus jumped through space, moving faster than light towards Sector 7, the reports kept coming in. Each one was worse than the last. The consortium had destroyed another fleet. The coalition was pulling back to their last strong defensive position. Entire star systems were going dark. The galaxy, which had known 1,000 years of relative peace, was dying. In the darkest corner of space, the consortium's main command ship, the Nexus Devourer, moved through the coalition's defenses like a knife through soft fruit. It was massive, 3 kilometers long, and its hull was covered with weapons that the coalition had never seen before. Inside the ship, the hive mind of the consortium processed information from 1 billion different parts of itself, always calculating, always adapting, always destroying. The Nexus Devourer did not know that a human warship was coming toward it. The Nexus Devourer did not know that anything could stop it. But Captain Arya Voss was bringing proof that the impossible was still possible. She was bringing hope to a dying galaxy. And she was bringing it in a ship built by a species that the ancient civilizations had never thought twice about. The Prometheus cut through space towards Sector 7, and the fate of everything hung in the balance. The first thing Captain Arya Voss saw when the Prometheus arrived in Sector 7 was death. Space was filled with the broken remains of warships that had been fighting the consortium. The light from distant stars showed twisted metal and frozen bodies drifting in the darkness. Entire fleets that had been the pride of the coalition just days ago were now nothing more than ruins. The Prometheus entered the battle area slowly, its sensors scanning everything around it. The second thing Arya saw was the Nexus Devourer. The enemy ship was so large that it seemed impossible. It hung in space like a living mountain, its organic hull moving and breathing with terrible life. The ship was firing on a coalition defensive station, and the station was being destroyed in slow motion, piece by piece. 10,000 lives were ending with every second that passed. Commander Shrell's voice came through the communication system again. "Human ship, this is Sector 7 Command. We are glad you came, but you must leave. The consortium cannot be fought with traditional tactics. Our best weapons do not work against them. Your ship will only die here with us. Leave now, while you still can." Arya understood what Shrell was telling her. Every military calculator in the galaxy would show the same thing. One human warship against the Nexus Devourer was not a battle. It was suicide. The human ship had no weapons powerful enough to harm the consortium's flagship. The human ship's shields would not hold against even one attack from the enemy's guns. By every measure of logic and science, the Prometheus should turn around and run. But Captain Arya Voss had never believed that logic and science told the whole story. She looked at her chief tactical officer, a woman named Lieutenant Maya Rodriguez. "What would they expect us to do?" Arya asked. Maya studied the tactical display in front of her. It showed the Nexus Devourer, the coalition defenses, and now the tiny shape of the Prometheus. The human ship looked very small compared to the enemy. "They would expect us to attack from a distance, Captain. They would expect us to use weapons and try to damage the ship before it destroys us. They expect the fight to follow the old patterns." "And how long would that take?" Arya asked. 30 minutes, Captain. Maybe 40. Then the Prometheus would be destroyed, and nothing would change." Arya nodded. "Then we will not do what they expect. Tell me, what is the one thing the consortium has never faced?" One of the junior officers, a young human named James, spoke up. "Humans don't fight like other species, Captain. We don't follow the math." "Correct," Arya said. "Navigation. Set a course for the Nexus Devourer. Full speed. Weapons. I want all defensive systems online and ready. Engineering. I need maximum power to the engines." The command center became very busy very quickly. People were moving and working, their fingers flying across control systems. But everyone was thinking the same thing. The captain was ordering them to ram the Nexus Devourer. It would be the most reckless thing any of them had ever done. Maya spoke up again. "Captain, ramming maneuvers have never worked against the consortium. They have defense systems for—" "I know," Arya said. "But they are expecting a traditional attack. They are expecting weapons and shields and distance. They are not expecting us to become a weapon ourselves. Tell me, What is the scariest thing on a battlefield? An enemy that does not behave the way you think it will, Maya answered. Yes, Arya said. Navigate by feel, not by calculations. Make the ship move like it has no logic. Make it move like something that only wants to survive and will do anything to do it. The Prometheus accelerated toward the Nexus Devourer. The enemy ship was so busy destroying the Coalition station that it did not seem to notice the human vessel coming toward it at first. Then the Consortium's defense systems activated. Energy weapons fired at the Prometheus, and the human ship's shields flared with impact. The Prometheus's hull began to heat. Alarms sang out through the corridors. But the ship kept moving forward. Arya watched the distance counter drop. 5,000 kilometers. 4,000. 3,000. The Coalition forces, watching from their dying stations, saw what was happening. The human ship was not retreating. The human ship was not attacking from a distance. The human ship was charging directly at the biggest, most powerful enemy ship in the galaxy. In the defensive station that was being destroyed, Commander Shrell stopped directing his forces. He watched the Prometheus move toward the Nexus Devourer, and for the first time in weeks, he felt something other than despair. He felt something like hope. Not because the Prometheus could win. It could not. But because someone had decided to fight anyway. The human ship took more hits. Sections of its hull were burning. Crew members were dying. The shields were starting to fail. But Maya Rodriguez was making the Prometheus move in ways that no Coalition tactical computer would have predicted. She was not following the most logical path. She was following the path that made the least sense. The path that was hardest to defend against. At 2,000 kilometers, the Prometheus fired all of its weapons at once. The attacks hit the Nexus Devourer and did very little damage. But they were close enough that the enemy's defense systems had to work harder to keep hitting the human ship. In that moment of distraction, the Prometheus changed course suddenly and sharply, burning atmosphere as it moved. Arya knew that they could not win this fight by destroying the enemy. She knew that the Prometheus would eventually be destroyed. But she also knew something that the Consortium might not understand. Sometimes winning was not about defeating the enemy. Sometimes winning was about surviving long enough to prove that survival was possible. The Prometheus crashed against the hull of the Nexus Devourer in a controlled collision. The human ship's shields flared and then failed. The impact tore a section of the Prometheus's armor, but it also created a moment of chaos in the Nexus Devourer's defenses. In that moment of chaos, the Coalition forces attacked again. They fired their weapons with new energy, with new hope. For the first time, they were not fighting to lose. They were fighting because someone had shown them it was possible to fight. The battle had changed. The galaxy had not yet won, but the galaxy had stopped losing. The message spread through the Coalition networks faster than light itself. It started from Sector 7, where a human warship had done something that no one thought was possible. The story was simple, but powerful. A species that had been laughed at. A ship that should not exist. A captain who had chosen to charge towards certain death, instead of choosing safety. The message spread from world to world, from fleet to fleet, crossing vast distances and touching every corner of the Coalition. The species of the galaxy heard the message in many different ways. Some heard it as words transmitted through communication systems. Some heard it as mathematical patterns passed through their quantum processors. Some heard it as songs of radiation and light. But all of them heard the same thing: hope. Someone had decided to fight when victory was impossible. Someone had decided that some things were worth more than survival. In the fleet station near the Kelthari homeworld, a military commander named Kress was preparing to give the order to retreat. The Consortium had destroyed 80% of the Kelthari fleet. The defensive stations around the homeworld were failing. Every calculation showed that the end was coming soon. Kress was about to order his remaining ships to run, to save as many people as possible by fleeing deeper into Coalition space. Then the message came about the human warship. Kress watched the tactical data from Sector 7. He saw the Prometheus move in ways that no ship should move. He saw it ram the Nexus Devourer and hold on to the enemy's hull, even as its own shields were failing. Kress was a soldier who had fought in 100 battles. He understood tactics and strategy and mathematics, but he also understood something else. He understood the feeling that came from knowing that someone else was fighting just as hard as you were. Kress canceled the retreat order. "All Kelthari ships, we are attacking," he said into the communication system. "I do not know if we can win, but I know that the humans are fighting in Sector 7, and we will fight here. We will fight until we cannot fight anymore." The Kelthari fleet turned around. They had been running towards safety. Now they were running toward the consortium forces. And as they attacked, other fleets began to do the same thing. The Venusian Collective, an alliance of artificial intelligences that had never been known to take risks, began to rewrite their tactical programs. A young AI named Spectra looked at the data from the Prometheus and understood something that her mathematical models had never shown. Logic could be wrong. Survival was not the only thing that mattered. There were things that were worth dying for. Spectra sent a message to all Venusian ships. "The probability of victory is only 5%, she said. "But the probability of dishonor is 100% if we do not fight. I choose to fight." The Venusian ships changed direction and began attacking the consortium forces. Around them, other coalition fleets were doing the same thing. The crystalline entities of Sector 9 began to harmonize with human tactical frequencies in ways that had never been attempted before. The gaseous cloud mines that floated through nebulae began to focus their energy into beam weapons. Even the ancient machine intelligences that had been running the coalition's defense systems began to calculate new strategies based not on mathematics alone, but on something that had never been part of their programming before: courage. In the command center of Sector 7, Commander Shrell watched as the tide of the battle began to turn. He had been a military commander for 10,000 years. He had seen countless battles and countless wars, but he had never seen anything like this. The entire galaxy was waking up. Species that had fought alone before were now fighting together. Fleets that had been about to surrender were now attacking with renewed strength. And it was all because one human captain had decided to do something that no one thought was logical. The Prometheus was still fighting, still holding on to the Nexus Devourer. The human ship was badly damaged. Whole sections of it were open to the vacuum of space. The crew was fighting fires and dying in explosions. But the ship was still moving, still pressing against the enemy, still refusing to surrender. Captain Arya Voss stood in the command center, with blood running down her face from a wound on her forehead. Around her, her crew was working with quiet determination. They were not fighting because they thought they could win. They were fighting because they knew that their fight meant something to everyone else in the galaxy. They were fighting because they were human, and humans had always found a way to matter. Maya Rodriguez was still at the helm, controlling the Prometheus with moves that no tactical computer would have predicted. She understood what her captain wanted now. She understood that the ship itself had become more than just a weapon. The Prometheus had become a symbol. It had become proof that the impossible was still possible. The consortium's Nexus Devourer had never faced an enemy like this before. The hive mind that controlled the ship had achieved perfect unity and perfect logic. Every action was calculated. Every movement was optimal. But it had never faced an opponent that did not follow the patterns of logic. The human ship moved in ways that the consortium's defense systems had not prepared for. It sacrificed sections of itself to gain advantage in other sections. It used its own damage as a tool. It made choices that were mathematically wrong, but emotionally powerful. The consortium was beginning to understand that there were things in the universe that could not be calculated. There were things that could not be optimized. There were things that came from a place deeper than pure logic. Those things were called courage. Those things were called determination. Those things were called humanity. Across the galaxy, in 1,000 different places, beings from 1,000 different species were watching what was happening. They were watching the Prometheus hold the line. They were watching the coalition forces rally and fight back. They were watching the consortium, for the first time, being pushed backward. And they were remembering something that they had almost forgotten. They were remembering that the universe was worth fighting for. That hope was not just a word but a real thing. That one ship, one captain, and one crew could change the course of history. The battle in Sector 7 was not won yet. The consortium was still powerful. The galaxy was still in danger. But something had shifted. The galaxy was no longer frozen in fear. The galaxy was moving again. The galaxy was fighting again. And it was all because humanity had decided to stand when everyone else was falling. The Prometheus was dying, and everyone on the ship knew it. The human warship had been fighting the Nexus Devourer for 2 hours. 2 hours might not sound like a long time, but in a battle between warships, 2 hours was an eternity. The shields had failed an hour ago. The armor was breached in 17 places. The engines were burning with uncontrolled fires. Entire sections of the ship had been vented into space, taking crew members with them. Captain Arya Voss stood in the command center and watched the reports come in. All of them were the same. The ship was losing systems. The crew was dying. They could not win. They could only survive a little longer. But that little longer meant everything to the coalition forces that were fighting around them. The battle had changed. The galaxy had changed. For 2 hours, the coalition forces had been fighting with a strength that they should not have had. But now the Prometheus was falling apart. And when it did, hope might fall with it. "Captain," Maya Rodriguez said from the helm station. Her uniform was torn, and there was blood on her hands. "Engines are down to 30% power. I cannot hold our position much longer. We need to move, or we need to die trying." Arya did not answer right away. She was thinking. She was doing what she had always done. She was looking at the impossible situation and trying to find the thing that everyone else was missing. The consortium's Nexus Devourer was still fighting. It was damaged now, but it was still strong. If the Prometheus pulled away, the enemy ship would turn its weapons back on the coalition defenses. 10,000 people were on those stations. More were coming in reinforcement fleets. If the Nexus Devourer destroyed the defenses before the reinforcements arrived, the galaxy would still lose. There was one thing left. It was not something that any captain wanted to think about. It was not something that any military commander wanted to order, but it was the thing that would save the galaxy. "Connect me to all coalition forces," Arya said quietly. In seconds, her voice was being transmitted across the battle space. Everyone heard her. Coalition commanders, fleet leaders, soldiers on dying stations, crew members on hundreds of ships. "This is Captain Arya Voss of the Prometheus," she said. "I want to tell you something. I want to tell you that we are going to win this battle. Not because we are stronger than the consortium. Not because we are smarter or have better weapons. We are going to win because we have something the consortium does not have. We have hope. We have the belief that some things are worth more than survival. We have the decision to stand together, instead of running alone." Her voice was steady now. She had found her purpose. She had found what she needed to do. "I am going to do something now," Arya continued. "I am going to use the power of my ship to buy you time. In the next few minutes, you are going to see the Prometheus explode. You will think we are dead. But we are not failing. We are succeeding. We are giving you the moment you need to attack. We are giving you the chance to win. Do not waste it. Do not run. Do not surrender. When you see my ship fall, you attack with everything you have. You fight for humanity. You fight for the coalition. You fight for all the lives that depend on you. You make our choice matter. You make our sacrifice mean something." She turned to her chief engineer, a man named Hassan. "Hassan, I need you to do something. I need you to reverse the flow of all our fusion reactors. I need you to build a power surge that will destroy everything in a specific pattern. I need you to make it possible." Hassan nodded. He understood what the captain was asking. She was asking him to turn the Prometheus into a bomb. She was asking him to use the ship's own power against itself in a way that would create an electromagnetic pulse massive enough to stun the Nexus Devourer. It would kill everyone on the Prometheus, but it would save the galaxy. "I can do it," Hassan said. "It will take 3 minutes." "Then do it," Arya said. "And everyone here, I want to thank you. I want to thank all of you. I want you to know that serving with you, fighting with you, means everything to me. You are the reason I am proud to be human. You are the reason I believe in this mission. You are the reason that I know, in my heart, that we are going to win." The crew of the Prometheus began to move. Some of them were saying goodbye to families and messages that they recorded. Some of them were simply working, doing their jobs one last time. Some of them were crying. All of them were brave. In the engine room, Hassan worked with his engineering team. They moved through sections of the ship that were on fire, that were open to space, that were falling apart. They rerouted power systems. They reversed the flow of reactor coolant. They prepared the fusion core for something it was never designed to do. Hassan's hands shook as he entered the final command. But he did not hesitate. He knew what he was doing. He knew why he was doing it. In the medical bay, the doctors and nurses were still treating the wounded, even though there would be no tomorrow. They worked because that was what they did. They worked because they were healers. And healers did not stop just because death was coming. In the weapons control center, the weapons officers stood at their stations with empty hands. They had fired every shot that their ship had to fire. Now all they could do was wait. The countdown reached 30 seconds. Commander Shrell watched from the Coalition command station. He could see the Prometheus on the tactical display. The human ship was glowing now, burning from the inside out. The Nexus Devourer was moving in for the kill, preparing to finish the small human vessel. But the consortium did not know what was about to happen. The countdown reached 10 seconds. Across the Coalition fleet, every ship was moving into attack position. They were gathering their weapons. They were preparing for the moment that would come. They were ready to make the captain's sacrifice mean something. The countdown reached 0. The Prometheus exploded in a burst of blue-white light that was visible across the entire sector. The explosion was not just a destruction. It was a weapon. The electromagnetic pulse that spread out from the human ship crashed into the Nexus Devourer like a wave. The consortium's defense systems went dark. The hive mind's control network flickered and failed. For one fraction of a second, the most powerful ship in the galaxy was helpless. That fraction of a second was enough. The Coalition fleets opened fire with everything they had. Weapons that had been silent began to roar. Beams of energy crossed space in 1,000 different directions. And the Nexus Devourer, for the first time in the battle, began to fall apart. Captain Arya Voss was dead. So was every member of her crew. 2,000 human lives ended in that explosion. But in their ending, something much larger was born. In their sacrifice, hope was given a body. In their death, the galaxy was given a future. The Prometheus was gone, but the Prometheus would never be forgotten. When the battle ended, no one was sure how to feel. The consortium had been defeated. The Nexus Devourer had been destroyed. The invasion that was supposed to end the Coalition had been stopped. But the cost was so high that for a long time, the galaxy could not celebrate. The galaxy could only mourn. The pieces of the Prometheus were scattered across space, like fragments of a dream. Salvage teams from 100 different worlds gathered every piece they could find. Some pieces were large. Some were small. All of them were treated with the same respect. These were the remains of the ship that had saved them all. These were the physical proof that a small group of humans, in one moment of incredible courage, had changed the entire course of history. Commander Shrell himself came to the wreckage. He was an old alien who had lived for 10,000 years and had never been moved to tears. But he stood in front of a piece of the Prometheus's hull and wept. He wept for the human captain who had trusted him with the most important decision of her life. He wept for the crew members who had chosen to die so that others could live. He wept for the galaxy that had been saved by a species that it had never truly believed in. In the weeks that followed, the Coalition began to rebuild. New ships were built. Damaged worlds were healed. The dead were mourned and remembered. But something had changed that could never change back. The Coalition had learned what it meant to have hope. The Coalition had learned what it meant to stand together. The Coalition had learned what it meant to fight, not for victory, but for the right to keep living. On 100 different worlds, memorials were built for the crew of the Prometheus. Some were simple stones with names carved into them. Some were massive structures that could be seen from space. Some were gardens where living things grew to remember the dead. But all of them said the same thing in 1,000 different languages. Here lie the humans who saved us. Here lie the courageous. Here lie the heroes. Captain Arya Voss received the highest honor that the Coalition could give. She was made a hero of the galaxy. Her name was written into the historical records of 1,000 different species. Her face was shown in schools and universities across known space. Young students learned about her before they learned about their own histories. She became more than just a captain. She became a symbol of what it meant to be human. But the greatest memorial was not a building, or a statue, or a name. The greatest memorial was a new law that was passed by the Coalition Council. It was called the Voss Doctrine. The law was simple, but powerful. It said that no species would ever abandon another in the face of extinction. It said that the life of one people was worth the sacrifice of many. It said that some things were more important than mathematics, and logic, and calculated survival. Some things were important because they were right. In the years that followed, the galaxy healed. The consortium was pushed back into the darkness from which it came. New alliances were formed. Old enemies became friends. Humans, the young species that had once been laughed at, became the leaders in a new movement toward unity and courage. Humans were not chosen as leaders because they were the smartest. They were not chosen because they had the most advanced weapons or the most powerful ships. They were chosen because they had shown the galaxy something that it had forgotten. They had shown that logic alone was not enough. They had shown that courage mattered. They had shown that the choice to do what was right was more important than the choice to survive. In the diplomatic halls of the coalition, historians and philosophers began to study human behavior. They wanted to understand what made humans willing to do things that no other species would do. They wanted to understand the force that had made Captain Voss order her ship into an impossible battle. They wanted to understand the thing that made ordinary humans do extraordinary things. Some said it was emotion. Some said it was irrationality. Some said it was a form of madness. But all of them agreed on one thing. Whatever it was powerful. Whatever it was, it had saved the galaxy. Whatever it was, it had to be understood and remembered. 20 years after the Battle of Sector 7, a young human girl stood in front of the largest Prometheus memorial. It was on Earth, in a place called New Tokyo. The memorial was carved from stone that had come from the wreckage of the original ship. In the center was the name Arya Voss, and around it were the names of every crew member who had died that day. 2,000 names, 2,000 people, 2,000 reasons why the galaxy still existed. The girl's name was Maya Voss. She was the great-great-granddaughter of Captain Arya Voss. She was too young to have known her ancestor, but she knew the story. Everyone in the galaxy knew the story. It was told in 1,000 different ways, in 1,000 different languages, by 1,000 different species. But the story was always the same. A human captain had taken her ship into an impossible battle. A human crew had chosen to sacrifice themselves so that others could live. And in that sacrifice, the entire galaxy had been transformed. At the memorial, Maya placed flowers at the base of the stone. She did not speak. She did not cry. She simply stood there for a long time, feeling the weight of history, feeling the presence of those who had come before her, feeling the responsibility to live a life that honored their memory. An old alien approached her. It was Commander Shrell. He had lived long enough to meet the great-great-granddaughter of the captain whose sacrifice he had witnessed. His hair had turned white. His body had grown slow, but his eyes were still clear, and in them was the memory of that day so long ago. "You are like her," Shrell said. "I can see it in your face. You have her determination." "I want to be a pilot," Maya said. "Like she was. I want to fly ships. I want to explore. I want to be human in a way that makes a difference." Shrell nodded. "Then you will be doing what she would have wanted. The Prometheus is gone, but its spirit is not. Its spirit lives in every human who chooses to be brave. Its spirit lives in every being in this galaxy who remembers that we are stronger when we stand together." That night, Maya looked up at the stars. She knew that somewhere out there, beyond the light and the darkness, the spirit of Captain Arya Voss was still moving through space. The spirit of the Prometheus was still inspiring beings to be more than they thought they could be. The sacrifice of 2,000 humans had changed the course of history. The galaxy had been frozen in fear. The galaxy had been dying. And then one human warship had entered the fight. One captain had made one impossible choice. One crew had decided to give everything so that others could live. That moment had changed everything. That moment was still changing everything. And it would keep changing things for 1,000 years to come. Because some acts are so courageous, so selfless, so powerful that they echo through history